Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the dusty, sun-scorched world of the Mauryan Empire, where the Silk Road's earliest threads weave through bustling bazaars and camel caravans. Picture yourself standing on a cracked clay road, the air thick with saffron and sweat, as merchants haggle over silk bales under the watchful eyes of royal guards. The Mauryan Empire, sprawling across ancient India around 300 BCE, isn't just a hub of spice and splendor. It's a labyrinth of bizarre laws that govern every step of this trade route. One wrong move, like miscounting your goats or sneezing near a sacred cow, and you're probably not surviving the fines or the shame. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're trudging along the Silk Road, or what passes for it in the Mauryan era, a network of dirt paths and river crossings stitching together India, Persia, and beyond. The Mauryan Empire, under the iron grip of Chandragupta and later his grandson Ashoka, isn't just a backdrop. It's the beating heart of early global trade. Historians peg this as a mainstream fact. The Mauryans, around 321 to 185 BCE, centralized power and standardized trade practices, making the Silk Road a viable artery for goods like cotton, spices, and precious stones. You're not just walking a road. You're navigating a system where every transaction is watched, taxed, and regulated by royal spies who blend into the crowd like nosy Andes at a wedding. But here's the quirky bit. The Mauryans had a thing for peacocks, not just as pretty pets, but as legal tender in some cases. In remote outposts, where coins were scarce, you might pay your road toll with a peacock feather or two, plucked fresh and presented with a bow. Imagine the look on a tax collector's face when you hand over a fistful of iridescent plumes instead of silver. Historians still argue whether this feather fetish was a practical workaround or a symbolic flex of Mauryan wealth, but it's the kind of oddity that makes you wonder what else they got up to. You pause at a roadside stall, the vendor offering you a clay cup of spiced buttermilk. The air hums with the clink of bronze coins and the low bellow of oxen. The Silk Road's Mauryan stretch isn't just a trade route. It's a cultural cauldron where Greek traders, Persian jewelers, and local farmers collide. The empire's founder, Chandragupta, supposedly met Alexander the Great's generals, picking up tricks for organizing armies and markets. That's why you're dodging potholes on a road that's suspiciously well-maintained for 300 BCE. The Mauryans obsessed over infrastructure, but they also layered it with laws so strange you'll need a nap just to process them. Take the law about silence. In some Mauryan towns along the route, you're forbidden from making loud noises after sunset. Think shouting, singing, or even dropping a clay pot. Break this rule, and you're fined a copper panna, or worse, sentenced to a night of public apology, where you stand in the square, head bowed, while neighbors tisk-tisk. The idea was to keep the peace for meditating monks, but you can't help but snicker at the image of a merchant caught mid-yell over a bad deal, suddenly whispering his curses. Bet that guy wished he'd packed a muzzle. You keep walking, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows over the wheat fields. The Silk Road's Mauryan laws weren't just about control. They were about survival. With bandits lurking in rival kingdoms eyeing the trade routes, the empire had to keep things tight. You pass a stone pillar, etched with royal decrees, early billboards for the emperor's rules. These pillars, later expanded by Ashoka, were the Mauryan version of a group chat. Everyone got the memo, no excuses. But enforcing them? That's where things got weird. Local officials, called Mahamatras, patrol the roads, sniffing out violations like overpriced lentils or untaxed silk. You're starting to feel like you're in a cosmic DMV, where every step comes with a form to fill out. Here's a modern aside. If the Mauryans had Wi-Fi, their Silk Road would have been a bureaucratic nightmare of QR codes and pop-up ads for pay your peacock tax now. You chuckle, imagining a camel driver rage-quitting over a CAPTCHA. But back then, the stakes were higher. Mess up a trade permit, and you're not just out a few bucks. You're hauling your goods to a royal court, where a judge might sentence you to carry water for a month. You're already sweating just thinking about it. As you round a bend, a caravan comes into view, dozens of camels laden with indigo and cinnamon, their drivers muttering about the latest toll. You overhear a snippet. Someone got fined for using an unapproved scale at the market. Scales, weights, even the width of cartwheels were regulated to keep trade fair. The Mauryans were sticklers for precision, a legacy that kept the Silk Road humming. But don't get too cozy. Those same officials who standardized measures also had a knack for sniffing out moral crimes, like disrespecting a Brahmin or, here's the kicker, wearing sandals in a temple district. You glance at your dusty feet, wondering if flip-flops would have landed you in jail. Another joke for you. Why did the Mauryan merchant always carry a spare sandal? Because barefoot fines were a real kick in the shins. You smirk, but the reality sinks in. The Silk Road was a lifeline, but it was also a tightrope. One misstep, and you're explaining yourself to a guy with a scroll and a superiority complex. You're starting to see why traders kept their heads down and their bribes ready. You stop to rest under a banyan tree, its roots sprawling like a natural bench. The Silk Road's Mauryan laws were a mix of genius and absurdity, designed to glue an empire together while keeping everyone on edge. As the stars peek out, you realize this journey is just beginning. The next town's a day away, and who knows what bizarre rule waits there. Maybe a ban on sneezing near spices? You'll find out soon enough. But for now, you're just glad to have a moment's peace, the night air cool against your skin. You're still on the Silk Road, the Mauryan Empire's dusty arteries stretching before you, each step kicking up clay that clings to your calves like a bad decision. The air's heavy with the scent of cardamom and camel dung, and you're weaving through a caravan of traders muttering about the Emperor's latest decrees. Those stone pillars you passed earlier, they're not just roadside decor. They're the Mauryan legal code, etched in rock by Ashoka himself, and they're about to make your life a lot weirder. You're diving into a world where morality and trade are tangled tighter than a weaver's loom, and one wrong move could cost you more than your cargo. The Mauryans, especially under Ashoka, were obsessed with dharma, righteous living, loosely speaking. Historians note this as a mainstream fact. After Ashoka's bloody conquest of Kalinga around 261 BCE, he pivoted hard into Buddhism, plastering his empire with edicts promoting nonviolence, charity, and obedience. These weren't just suggestions. They were laws carved into pillars and boulders along the Silk Road, so you couldn't miss them even if you tried. You're squinting at one now. It's Brahmi script, weathered but stern, like a parent's note telling you to clean your room. Except this one's ordering you to respect elders, avoid killing animals, and here's the fun part, not gossip about rival traders. Good luck with that last one. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some of Ashoka's edicts ban useless ceremonies, like over-the-top weddings or superstitious rituals. In one Silk Road town, you're told, locals got fined for throwing rice at bride because it wasted grain. Imagine the chaos. A joyous wedding, rice flying, then a Imam Matra storms in, scroll in hand, demanding a fine equivalent to 3 goats. You can't help but picture the bride's uncle arguing, but it's tradition, while the official counts the scattered grains like a grumpy accountant. Historians still argue whether these bans were about resource conservation or Ashoka's Buddhist zeal to simplify life, but either way, you're glad you're not planning a party here. You keep moving, the road buzzing with activity. A merchant nearby is double-checking his silk bales, muttering about the truthfulness edict. Apparently, Ashoka's laws demanded honesty in trade. No inflating prices or lying about your goods' origins. Break that rule, and you're not just fined. You're paraded through the market with a sign listing your lies. Talk about a walk of shame. You smirk, thinking of a modern equivalent. Imagine a shady online seller force a post, "I sold fake AirPods," on their profile. Bet that'd keep things honest. The edicts weren't all doom and gloom, though. You pass a shady grove where a royal rest house offers free water and mangoes to travelers, a direct result of Ashoka's charity laws. You grab a mango, its juice dripping down your chin, and for a moment, you're grateful for this emperor's softer side. But don't get too cozy. Those same laws mandate you report any immoral behavior you see, like a trader watering down their wine or a guard taking a bribe. Snitching isn't optional. It's civic duty. You glance at the guy next to you, who's suspiciously generous with his smiles. Is he hiding something, or is he just bad at small talk? You're not sure, but you're keeping your mouth shut. Here's a joke to lighten the mood. Why did the Mauryan trader whisper his deals? Because Ashoka's spies had ears sharper than a peacock scream. You chuckle, but the paranoia is real. The edicts created a culture where everyone's watching everyone else, and you're starting to feel like you're in a reality show with no prize money. The Silk Road's not just a trade route. It's a moral minefield, and you're tiptoeing through it. You reach a small town, its mud brick walls glowing orange in the sunset. The local market's winding down, but you catch a glimpse of a royal inspector checking a merchant's scales. Ashoka's edict standardized weights and measures across the empire, ensuring no one got shortchanged. It's a solid system, but the enforcement's where things get odd. If your scale's off by even a hair, you're not just fined. You might have to donate a cow to a temple as penance. You overhear a trader grumbling about losing his best heifer over a rusty scale. Poor guy probably wishes he'd stuck to bartering. The Buddhist influence in these laws is impossible to miss. You pass a monastery, its monks chanting softly, and notice a sign forbidding meat sales on certain days. Ashoka's push for nonviolence meant slaughterhouses shut down during Buddhist holy periods, and traders caught selling goat curry could face a hefty fine or public labor. Like digging wells for a month. You're a vegetarian today, just to be safe. But here's the kicker. Some scholars think these meat bans weren't universal. In non-Buddhist regions, you can still grill your kebabs as long as you pay the right tax. It's like the empire was playing good cop, bad cop with its own laws. Another modern aside. If Ashoka ran a social media platform, he'd probably ban memes about wasteful weddings and pin a be kind post to everyone's feed. You grin. Imagine his profile pic, a serene lotus flower, naturally. But back on the Silk Road, the edicts are no joke. You're dodging rules about everything from how loud you can laugh to how many servants you can bring on the road. One law even limits the number of torches you can carry at night, supposedly prevent fires, but probably also to keep tabs on who's sneaking around after dark. You're starting to feel like you need a lawyer just to buy a sack of rice. As you settle near a campfire, the stars blinking above, you overhear a trader reciting one of Ashoka's edicts from memory. All men are my children. It's a sweet sentiment, but it comes with strings. The emperor saw himself as a father figure, which meant his kids, you included, had to follow his rules or face a cosmic timeout. You're exhausted just thinking about it. The Silk Road's wealth is tempting, but these laws are a reminder that every coin comes with a catch. Here's another joke. What's an Ashokan edict's favorite dance? The step carefully shuffle. You snore, but the truth is you're learning that dance fast. The Mauryan legal code isn't just about trade. It's about shaping souls, and you're caught in its web. Tomorrow, you'll hit the bazaars, where the laws get even stranger. For now, you pull your shawl tighter. The fires crackle, lulling you toward sleep, and wonder what bizarre rule you'll stumble into next. You're deep in the Mauryan Empire now. The Silk Road's chaos swirling around you like a sandstorm of spices and shouting. The sun beats down on a sprawling bazaar, where stalls overflow with indigo-dyed cloth cinnamon sticks and beads that glint like tiny suns. Your sandals slap against the packed earth as you weave through the crowd, dodging donkey carts and merchants waving samples in your face. But it's not just the noise or the heat making you sweat. It's the bizarre regulations that govern every transaction here. One misstep, like using the wrong measuring cup, could land you in a mess stickier than a spilled jar of ghee. The Mauryans were sticklers for a fair trade, and that's a mainstream historical fact. By 300 BCE, the empire had rolled out standardized weights and measures across its markets, ensuring no one got cheated on a sack of barley or a bolt of silk. You see it in action now. A royal inspector, draped in a white dhoti, checks a merchant's bronze weights with a squint that could curdle milk. These standards weren't just practical. They were a power flex, tying far-flung bazaars to the emperor's authority. You're impressed, but also a little paranoid, because those same inspectors are watching you, too. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Mauryan bazaars had a smell tax on certain goods. If you're selling pungent items, like fermented fish paste or overripe mangoes, you're slapped with an extra fee to protect the market's ambience. Imagine the absurdity. You're haggling over a basket of fruit, only to have an official sniff your wares and demand a copper coin for olfactory disturbance. You stifle a laugh, picturing a modern food truck getting fined for taco fumes. Historians still argue whether this tax was about hygiene or just a creative cash grab, but it's the kind of rule that makes you glad you're not selling durians today. You pause at a stall piled high with lentils, the vendor eyeing you warily. The law demands every sale be measured with government-approved tools. Clay cups, bronze pans, even knotted ropes for cloth. You watch a buyer argue over a grain scoop that looks slightly dented, and the vendor's quick to flash his official seal, proving his tools are legit. Break this rule, and you're not just fined. You might lose your stall for a month, forced to beg for scraps while your rivals scoop up your customers. It's cutthroat, and you're starting to feel like you're in a game of Monopoly where the banker's armed. Here's a joke to ease attention. Why did the Mauryan merchant polish his scales? Because a shiny balance kept the inspectors off his back. You smirk, but the reality is less funny. You're carrying a small sack of peppercorns to trade, and you've triple-checked your own measures, because even an honest mistake could cost you. The bazaar's a sensory overload. Saffron clouds your nose, hawkers shout deals, and a stray goat nibbles at your hem. But the real pressure comes from the invisible web of laws tightening around every deal. You move on, brushing past a silk trader who's muttering about the display rule. Apparently, Mauryan bazaars banned stacking goods too high, claiming it blocked the emperor's spies from spotting shady deals. You glance at the trader's neat piles, each bundle barely knee-high, and wonder if he's paranoid or just playing it safe. The rule's enforcement is spotty, but you've heard stories of overzealous officials toppling stalls for obstructing surveillance. It's like the Mauryans invented the first anti-clutter law, and you can't help but imagine Ashoka as a minimalist guru preaching less stack, more dharma. A modern aside. If these bizarre laws existed today, your local farmer's market would be a nightmare of rulers and sniff tests, with Karen in a sun hat reporting you for an uneven apple pile. You chuckle, but back here, the stakes are higher. You pass a stall where a merchant's been caught using a fake weight, a hollowed-out bronze lump filled with clay. The crowd's buzzing as an inspector hauls him off, his pleas drowned out by jeers. His punishment? A fine, plus a week of sweeping the bazaar at dawn. You wince, glad your peppercorns are legit, but you're double-checking your sack just in case. The Buddhist influence creeps in again. You notice some stalls shut down, their owners citing a no-trade day mandated by Ashoka's edicts. On certain Buddhist holy days, selling luxury goods, like silk or ivory, is forbidden to promote simplicity. You're tempted by a shimmering scarf, but the vendor shakes his head, muttering about a fine he can't afford. It's a reminder of those moral laws you dodge back on the road, and you're starting to see how they seep into every corner of this empire. You're not just trading goods, you're navigating philosophy, and it's exhausting. Another joke. What a Mauryan merchant's worst nightmare. No silk day and a nosy monk. You grin. But the thought lingers as you pass a temple where monks are handing out free rice to the poor, another Ashokan mandate. The emperor's laws balance profit with piety, but they also kept everyone on edge. You overhear a trader grumbling about a rule against excessive haggling. Apparently, if you argue too long over a price, you're disrupting the market harmony and could be fined a silver panna. You're tempted to haggle for a clay lamp just to test the limit, but the inspector's glare stops you cold. As the sun dips, the bazaar's color soften, and you find a quiet corner to rest. You're clutching your peppercorns, wondering if you got the stamina for this. The Mauryan Bazaar isn't just a market. It's a battlefield of rules, where every sail is a dance with bureaucracy. You're learning fast, but the next challenge, laws about animals, is looming, and you've got a feeling they'll be even stranger. For now, you sip warm chai from a vendor who's miraculously rule-compliant. The spice is warming your throat as the evening hum settles around you. You're still weaving through the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, the bazaar's clamor fading behind you as you tread a quieter path lined with tamarind trees. The air's cooler now, carrying the earthy scent of grazing cattle and the distant bleat of goats. You're not just a trader anymore. You're a guest in a world where animals aren't just livestock. They're practically citizens, protected by some of the strangest laws you've ever encountered. The Mauryan obsession with beasts goes beyond practicality, and as you dodge a stray buffalo, you're about to learn just how far their animal welfare rules stretch. A mainstream historical fact anchors this. Ashoka's Buddhist-inspired edicts, rolled out around 260 BC, included some of the earliest recorded laws protecting animals. His rock inscriptions list species, cows, goats, even fish, that traders and farmers couldn't harm on certain days, pushing nonviolence as state policy. You see it in the village ahead, where a signpost bans slaughter during the full moon. It's not just about spirituality. It's about control, tying every herder and fisherman to the emperor's moral vision. You're impressed, but also a bit nervous, because those same laws apply to you, and you're not sure if your last meal broke any rules. Here's the quirky tidbit. The Mauryans had a law requiring animal rest days for beasts of burden. Camels, oxen, even donkeys along the Silk Road got mandatory days off, where traders couldn't load them with goods. Enforcement was wild. Officials would patrol caravans, checking for overworked animals, and if your camel looked too tired, you'd be fined or forced to let it graze for a week. Picture yourself explaining to a stern Mahamatra that your camel's just having a bad day while it chews lazily on a shrub. Historians still argue whether this was genuine compassion or a way to ensure trade routes stayed efficient, but you're just glad your own feet are doing the heavy lifting today. You pause near a watering hole, where a trader is coaxing his oxen to drink. He's muttering about the no-goad rule, another Mauryan oddity banning sharp prods to drive animals. Instead, you're supposed to use soft sticks or, better yet, sweet-talk your beast into moving. You stifle a laugh, imagining this guy whispering compliments to his stubborn ox, but the trader's dead serious. Break the rule, and you're out a few coins, or worse, stuck performing animal service, like cleaning a royal stable. You're starting to see why traders keep their tempers in check around their livestock. Here's a joke to lighten the mood. Why did the Mauryan camel join a union? It heard about those mandatory vacations. You chuckle, but the reality's sinking in. These animal laws aren't just quirky. They're a logistical nightmare. You're carrying your peppercorns from the bazaar, but if you hire a cart, you'll need to track lunar cycles to avoid slaughter bans or rest day fines. It's like the Mauryans invented the first animal rights handbook, but forgot to make it user-friendly. You keep moving, passing a herd of cows that seem to know they're untouchable. Cows, sacred to many in the empire, are practically royalty here. One edict forbids killing them outright, and you've heard whispers of traders fined for even disrespecting a cow, whatever that means. Maybe it's glaring too long, or not stepping aside fast enough. You give the herd a wide berth, just in case. A modern aside. If these laws were around today, your local burger joint would be out of business, and every cow would have its own Instagram account, captioned "Living My Best Mauryan Life." You grin, but you're keeping your eyes peeled for nosy officials. The Buddhist angle is everywhere. You pass a monastery where monks are feeding stray dogs, a direct nod to Ashoka's call for kindness to all creatures. But the laws get weirdly specific. One rule bans fishing in certain rivers during spawning season, with violators forced to release their catch and pay a fine in rice. You overhear a fisherman grumbling about losing half his haul to a fish amnesty. It's noble, but you can't help wondering how he feeds his family now. The Empire's trying to save souls in salmon, but it's a tightrope for those just trying to get by. Another joke. What's a Mauryan ox's favorite holiday? The day it gets to nap without a cart. You smirk, but the thought lingers as you spot a caravan halted by an inspector. He's checking the camel's hooves, ensuring they're not cracked from overwork. The trader's sweating, probably because a lame camel could mean a fine or a forced detour to a royal vet. Yes, the Mauryans had state-sponsored animal doctors, another Ashcan flex that makes you wonder if your own health gets this much attention. You settle under a banyan tree, its shade of relief from the midday heat. The Silk Road's animal laws are a mix of compassion and control, and you're starting to feel like you're hurting your own sanity. You remember that smell tax from the bazaar. Imagine if they applied it to livestock. You'd be bankrupt from your camel's aroma alone. The next stretch of the road promises new challenges, like taxes that'll make your head spin. For now, you watch a goat nibble on a patch of grass, blissfully unaware of the laws protecting its lunch. You're jealous of its simplicity, but the road calls, and you've got to keep moving. You're still weaving to the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, the bazaar's clamor fading behind you as you tread a quieter path lined with tamarind trees. The air's cooler now, carrying the earthy scent of grazing cattle and the distant bleat of goats. You're not just a trader anymore. You're a guest in a world where animals aren't just livestock. They're practically citizens, protected by some of the strangest laws you've ever encountered. The Mauryan obsession with beasts goes beyond practicality, and as you dodge a stray buffalo, you're about to learn just how far their animal welfare rules stretch. A mainstream historical fact anchors this. Ashoka's Buddhist-inspired edicts, rolled out around 260 BCE, included some of the earliest recorded laws protecting animals. His rock inscriptions list species, cows, goats, even fish, that traders and farmers couldn't harm on certain days, pushing nonviolence as state policy. You see it in the village ahead, where a signpost bans slaughter during the full moon. It's not just about spirituality. It's about control, tying every herder and fisherman to the emperor's moral vision. You're impressed, but also a bit nervous, because those same laws apply to you, and you're not sure if your last meal broke any rules. Here's the quirky tidbit. The Mauryans had a law requiring animal rest days for beasts of burden. Camels, oxen, even donkeys along the Silk Road got mandatory days off, where traders couldn't load them with goods. Enforcement was wild. Officials would patrol caravans, checking for overworked animals, and if your camel looked too tired, you'd be fined or forced to let it graze for a week. Picture yourself explaining to a stern Mahamatra that your camel's just having a bad day while it chews lazily on a shrub. Historians still argue whether this was genuine compassion or a way to ensure trade routes stayed efficient, but you're just glad your own feet are doing the heavy lifting today. You pause near a watering hole where a trader's coaxing his oxen to drink. He's muttering about the no-goad rule, another Mauryan oddity banning sharp prods to drive animals. Instead, you're supposed to use soft sticks or, better yet, sweet-talk your beast into moving. You stifle a laugh, imagining this guy whispering compliments to a stubborn ox, but the trader's dead serious. Break the rule, and you're out a few coins, or, worse, stuck performing animal service, like cleaning a royal stable. You're starting to see why traders keep their tempers in check around their livestock. Here's a joke to lighten the mood. Why did the Mauryan camel join union? It heard about those mandatory vacations. You chuckle, but the reality's sinking in. These animal laws aren't just quirky. They're a logistical nightmare. You're carrying your peppercorns from the bazaar, but if you hire a cart, you'll need to track lunar cycles to avoid slaughter bans or rest day fines. It's like the Mauryans invented the first animal rights handbook, but forgot to make it user-friendly. You keep moving, passing a herd of cows that seem to know they're untouchable. Cows, sacred to many in the empire, are practically royalty here. One edict forbids killing them outright, and you've heard whispers of traders fined for even disrespecting a cow, whatever that means. Maybe it's glaring too long or not stepping aside fast enough. You give the herd a wide berth, just in case. A modern aside, if these laws were around today, your local burger joint would be out of business. And every cow would have its own Instagram account, captioned, "Living my best Mauryan life." You grin, but you're keeping your eyes peeled for nosy officials. The Buddhist angle is everywhere. You pass a monastery where monks are feeding stray dogs, a direct nod to Ashoka's call for kindness to all creatures. But the laws get weirdly specific. One rule bans fishing in certain rivers during spawning season, with violators forced to release their catch and pay a fine in rice. You overhear a fisherman grumbling about losing half his haul to a fish amnesty. It's noble, but you can't help wondering how he feeds his family now. The Empire is trying to save souls in salmon, but it's a tightrope for those just trying to get by. Another joke. What's a Mauryan ox's favorite holiday? The day it gets to nap without a cart. You smirk, but the thought lingers as you spot a caravan halted by an inspector. He's checking the camel's hose, ensuring they're not cracked from overwork. The trader's sweating, probably because a lame camel could mean a fine or a forced detour to a royal vet. Yes, the Mauryans had state-sponsored animal doctors, another Ashken flex that makes you wonder if your own health gets this much attention. You settle under a banyan tree, its shade of relief from the midday heat. The Silk Road's animal laws are a mix of compassion and control, and you're starting to feel like you're hurting your own sanity. You remember that smell tax from the bazaar. Imagine if they applied it to livestock. You'd be bankrupt from your camel's aroma alone. The next stretch of the road promises new challenges, like taxes that'll make your head spin. For now, you watch a goat nibble on a patch of grass, blissfully unaware of the laws protecting its lunch. You're jealous of its simplicity, but the road calls, and you got to keep moving. You're trudging along the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, the horizon shimmering with heat as you clutch your sack of peppercorns, each step a reminder of the way to trade, and the taxes that come with it. The path is littered with caravans, their drivers cursing under their breath, not at the dust of the sun, but at the toll booths looming ahead like vultures. The Mauryan tax system is a beast of its own, and you're about to discover just how peculiar its clause can be. These aren't your average levies. They're a maze of rules that can make even a seasoned merchant weep into their silk. A mainstream historical fact sets the stage. The Mauryans, under Chandragupta and Ashoka, ran a tightly controlled economy, with taxes on trade goods funding everything from roads to royal palaces. By 300 BCE, the empire's revenue system was sophisticated, with officials collecting duties on everything from spices to livestock at key checkpoints. You're approaching one now, a wooden gate manned by a Mahamatra with a ledger and a stare that could crack stone. Every bale, every coin, every peacock feather in your possession is fair game, and you're already calculating how much this will cost you. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Mauryan taxes were based on the quality of your goods, judged by, get this, their shine. If your silk glistened just right or your bronze pot sparkled, you'd pay a premium luxury tax because shiny stuff was deemed fancier. You're picturing the absurdity. A tax collector squinting at your peppercorns, holding them to the sun, and declaring them too lustrous for the standard rate. Historians still argue whether this was a legit valuation method or just officials milking traders for extra coin, but you're polishing your sack just in case. Gotta keep those peppercorns dull. You join the line at the toll booth, the air thick with grumbling. The merchant ahead of you is arguing over a camel load tax, a levy based on how much his beast can carry. The catch? It's not just weight, it's the number of humps. 2 hump camels get taxed double because they're obviously richer cargo haulers. You stifle a laugh, imagining a trader shaving a hump to dodge a fee, but the Mahamatra's not amused. He's tallying the guy's load with a reed pen, and you're next. You're starting to wish you'd stuck to bartering back at the bazaar. Here's a joke to cut the tension. Why did the Mauryan trader hide his shiny silk? Because the taxman's eyes were brighter than his goods. You smirk, but the reality's grim. You're clutching your peppercorns, hoping they pass as standard grade, because a luxury tax could eat half your profits. The Mauryan system isn't just about revenue. It's about reminding you who's boss. You remember those animal rest days in the last village, Taxes work the same way, tying you to the empire's rhythm whether you like it or not. You step up to the booth, the official barely glancing at you before demanding your trade permit. Permits are another layer of this tax nightmare. Every trader needs one, stamped with royal seal, and they're not cheap. Lose it, and you're paying a fine plus a reissuing fee. That feels like highway robbery. A modern aside, if this were today, you'd be scanning a QR code for your permit while a pop-up ad tries to sell you premium tax evasion tips. You chuckle. But back here, there's no app to save you, just your wits and a prayer that your permit's ink hasn't smudged. The Buddhist influence sneaks in, as always. Some taxes fund monasteries or public wells, part of Ashoka's push for Dharma. You overhear a trader complain about a charity surcharge tacked onto a spice hall meant to feed the poor. It's noble, but when you're already bleeding coins, it stings. You're starting to see the pattern. Every law, every tax, is a thread in the empire's moral tapestry. You're not just paying for roads. You're buying into Ashoka's vision of a righteous world. Too bad your wallet doesn't feel so enlightened. Another joke. What's a Mauryan tax collector's favorite game? Guess the shine, double the fine. You grin, but your turn's up. The Mom Matra inspects your peppercorns, sniffing them like a sommelier. He mutters something about medium grade and slaps you with a standard toll, plus a small road usage fee, because your sandals are excessively dusty. You're too stunned to argue, handing over a few bronze coins while mentally cursing the empire's creativity. At least you dodge a luxury tax. Small victories. You move on, the checkpoint fading behind you. The Silk Road's taxes aren't just financial. They're psychological, keeping you on edge. You pass a merchant who got hit with a foreign goods tax for Persian rugs, double the rate because they're exotic. He's ranting about fairness, but you keep your head down. The Mauryans love their categories, shiny, foreign, two-humped, and you're learning to navigate them like a tightrope. The next stretch of road promises new rules, maybe about who can even travel these paths. For now, you're just glad to have a few coins left, the evening breeze cooling your brow as you dream of a tax-free tomorrow. The Buddhist influence weaves through these rules, too. You pass a sign banning travel through sacred groves, where monks meditate in silence. Skirt the grove and you're fine. Cut through and you're slapped with a disturbance fine, or forced to plant trees as penance. You're tempted to peek at the monks, their orange robes flickering through the trees, but you stick to the main path. The empire's obsession with Dharma means even your footsteps are moral choices, and you're starting to feel like you're in a cosmic game of Simon Says. Another joke. What's a Mauryan guard's favorite phrase? Show me your permit or sleep in the dirt. You grin, but the checkpoint's behind you, and the road's opening up, sort of. You're now in a traders-only stretch where non-merchants, like wandering ascetics or local farmers, need special permission to pass. The rule keeps the Silk Road focused on commerce, but it's a headache for anyone else. You overhear a herder arguing with a guard. His goat's bleeding as he's turned back. Poor guy probably just wanted to sell some cheese at the next market. You keep moving, the sun dipping low, painting the fields gold. The travel restrictions aren't just about control. They're about identity. The Mauryans want to know who you are, where you're going, and why. You remember that smell tax from the bazaar and the camel rest days. These rules are all cousins, tying you to the empire's grand plan. But they're also a reminder of your place. As a trader, you're vital but expendable, allowed to roam only as long as you play by the rules. You're starting to envy those Brahmins and their fancy lanes. As you near a village, you spot a royal courier galloping past, his horse kicking up dust. He's exempt from most restrictions, a perk of serving the emperor. You, meanwhile, are double-checking your permit for the 10th time, because the next checkpoint might not be so lenient. The Silk Road's freedom comes with chains, and you're learning to carry them lightly. Up ahead, merchant guilds beckon with their own bizarre laws. For now, you find a spot to rest, the evening air soft against your skin, and hope tomorrow's road is a little less picky about your paperwork. You're still trekking to the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, the dust of the road now a second skin as you clutch your peppercorns and your freshly stamped permit. The horizon hums with the promise of a bustling trade hub, where merchant guilds hold sway like the cool kids in a village square. These aren't just clubs of traders. They're powerhouses, bound by eccentric laws that make your head spin faster than a potter's wheel. You're about to join one, or at least try, but the rules governing these guilds are as tangled as a skein of silk, and you're already wondering if it's worth the hassle. A mainstream historical fact sets the scene. Mauryan merchant guilds, or shrinis, were organized groups that controlled trade, set prices, and negotiated with the empire by 300 BCE. They were like ancient trade unions, giving merchants clout to deal with taxes and regulations while ensuring quality control. You're nearing a guild hall now, a mud brick building with a carved wooden door, where traders haggle and plot under the emperor's watchful eye. Joining one can mean protection and profit, but it's not as simple as signing up. You're about to wade through a swamp of bizarre requirements. Here's the quirky tidbit. To join some guilds, you had to pass a character test that included, brace yourself, public chanting of your trade history. Picture standing in a courtyard, reciting every deal you've ever made, while guild elders nod or frown like judges at a poetry slam. Flub a detail, like forgetting the price of that indigo you sold last year, and you're out. Historians still argue whether this was about trust or just hazing newbies, but you're practicing your chant under your breath, hoping you don't sound like a nervous goat. Those peppercorns better have a good backstory. You approach the guild hall, the air thick with incense and ambition. The doors guarded by a clerk who demands your permit, and a guild fee, a steep handful of coins just to apply. You're starting to see why traders stick together. Going solo on the Silk Road is like swimming with crocodiles. Inside, the guild's rules are stricter than a monk's vow. One law bans members from undercutting each other's prices, keeping profits steady but sparking secret rivalries. You overhear two traders whispering about a guy who slashed his cotton rates and got expelled, forced to trade in backwater markets. You're already vowing to play nice, even if it means smiling at that shady silk dealer you met yesterday. Here's a joke to lighten the mood. Why did the Mauryan trader join a guild? To avoid chanting his failures alone. You smirk, but the guild's no laughing matter. Another rule demands you contribute to a community chest, a pool of goods or coin for emergencies, like bailing out a member hit with a tax fine. It's solidarity, Mauryan style, but you're wincing at the thought of parting with more peppercorns. You remember that shiny goods tax from the checkpoint. Guilds often negotiate exemptions, which might make this worth it. Still, you're counting your coins like they're your last friends. The Buddhist influence is subtle but present. Guilds are expected to donate to monasteries or fund public works, like wells or rest houses, tying their wealth to Ashoka's dharma. You spot a guild elder handing rice to a monk, a ritual that half charity, half PR. But there's a catch. Some guilds enforce a no-meat rule during trade meetings, honoring Buddhist nonviolence. You're fine with lentils, but the grumbling spice trader next to you is mourning his goat curry. A modern aside. If guilds existed today, they'd probably have a vegan potluck and a Slack channel for chanting trade histories. You grin, imagining the hashtags, but the clerk's glare pulls you back to 300 BCE. Another joke. What's a Mauryan guild's favorite song? Chant it, don't break it. You chuckle, but the initiation looms. You're ushered into a courtyard where elders quiz you on your trade routes and ethics. One rule forbids dealing with dishonest merchants, vague enough to trap anyone. You're sweating, reciting your peppercorn deals, when an elder asks about that bazaar where you dodged a smell tax. You pivot fast, praising the market's fragrant harmony, and they nod barely. You're in, but you're already exhausted, and you haven't even seen the guild's full rule book. Inside, the guild hall buzzes with strategy. Members share tips on dodging travel restrictions, like those caste lanes you slog through. Guilds a pull, sometimes bribing officials to ease checkpoint hassles. But they're also a leash, break a rule, like trading on a no-sale holy day, and you're fined or shunned. You're starting to feel like you've joined a cult, not a club. The elders hand you a clay token, your guild membership, and warn you to keep it safe. Lose it, and you're back to chanting in the courtyard. As you leave, the sun's dipping, casting long shadows over the road. The guild's laws are a lifeline in a labyrinth, much like the Silk Road itself. You're safer now, but also bound tighter to the Empire's web. You think back to those animal rest days and shiny taxes. Guilds weave those rules into their deals, making trade smoother but never simple. The next stretch of road promises punishments for rule breakers, and you're hoping your new guild token keeps you out of trouble. For now, you find a quiet spot to rest, the night air soft, and clutch your token like a talisman. You're still navigating the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, your guild token tucked safely in your sash, a small clay shield against the chaos of trade. The road hums with caravans, their bells jangling as you pass mud brick villages glowing in the late afternoon light. But there's a nervous edge to the air, like the moment before a storm. You're about to witness what happens when traders break the Mauryan's bizarre laws, a world of punishments that range from quirky to downright humbling. One false move, like skimping on a tax or disrespecting a cow, and you're not just paying a fine, you're starring in a public spectacle. A mainstream historical fact anchors this. The Mauryans enforce their laws with a mix of fines, labor, and public shaming, designed to maintain order and deter rule breakers across their vast empire by 300 BCE. Ashoka's edicts, carved on those stone pillars you keep passing, outline penalties for everything from trade violations to moral slip-ups. You're nearing a village square now, where crowds gathered around a merchant who's clearly in trouble. His slumped shoulders and the mantra's stern scroll suggest he's about to learn the hard way what happens when you cross the empire. Here's the quirky tidbit. One common punishment was public apology, where offenders had to stand in the market, head bowed, and recite their crimes to passers-by. Imagine the poor guy in the square, mumbling, "I use a fake weight for my lentils," while kids giggle and elders TSK. Some towns even made offenders wear a clay sign listing their offense, like a scarlet letter, but baked in a kiln. Historians still argue whether this was about rehabilitation or just crowd entertainment. But you're glad your peppercorns are legit, because you're not ready for that kind of stage time. You edge closer, the crowd's murmurs filling you in. The merchant shortchanged the buyer with a doctored scale, a big no-no on the bizarre rules you navigated earlier. His punishment? A fine, plus a week of sweeping the village streets at dawn. You wince, picturing him dodging goat droppings while his rivals smirk from their stalls. It's not just the labor, it's the shame. The Mauryans knew how to hit where it hurts, your wallet and your pride. You're clutching your guild token tighter, hoping it's a get-out-of-jail card you need. Here's a joke to break the tension. Why did the Mauryan merchant sweep so well? He wanted to clean up his reputation. You smirk, but the scene's sobering. Another punishment catches your ear. For minor tax evasion, like dodging that shiny goods levy, you might be sentenced to community labor, like repairing a road or digging a well. It's practical, keeps the Silk Road running, but it's also a reminder that you're a cog in the Empire's machine. You remember that camel rest day rule. Imagine getting caught overworking your beast and ending up hauling water for a month. You're keeping your imaginary camel on a strict spa schedule from now on. The Buddhist influence softened some punishments. Ashoka's push for dharma meant executions were rare, replaced by fines or labor meant to reform you. But don't get too comfy. Serious crimes, like stealing from a monastery, could land you in a royal court, where judges might banish you from the Silk Road altogether. You overhear a trader whisper about a guy who lost his guild membership for smuggling untaxed silk. Now he's bartering pots in a backwater, a fate worse than sweeping. A modern aside. If this were today, he'd be canceled on social media, his Etsy shop tanked with 1-star reviews. You grin, but you're double-checking your own tax receipts. Another joke. What's a Mauryan offender's least favorite tune? The shame chant in the village square. You chuckle, but the crowd's dispersing now, the merchant slinking off to start his sweeping sentence. You move on, the square fading behind you. The punishments aren't just about justice. They're theater, reminding everyone to stay in line. You pass a pillar with an edict warning against dishonest trade, and it feels like the Empire's eyes are on you. Those travel restrictions and guild rules you've navigated, break them, and you're not just fined, you're a cautionary tale. You keep walking, the road quieter now, the sun dipping low. Some punishments are oddly creative. For disrespecting a sacred animal, like those untouchable cows, you might be tasked with feeding a herd for a week, your profits draining as you fork over grain. You're steering clear of livestock, just in case. And remember that no noise after sunset rule from way back? Break it, and you could be stuck ringing a bell at dawn to restore harmony, waking the very neighbors you annoyed. It's poetic, but you're not volunteering. As you near a rest stop, you overhear a trader joking about a guy who paid a fine in peacock feathers. Yes, those weird legal tenders you learned about early on. It worked, but only after he paraded them through the market, proving their authenticity. The Mauryans love their flair, even in punishment. You're starting to see the Silk Road as a stage, where every rule and its consequence is a performance. The next act? Religious influences on these laws. And you're betting they'll be just as wild. For now, you settle under a tree, the evening breeze cool, and hope your guild token keeps the Matras off your back. You're still winding to the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, the road now a ribbon of packed earth under a sky streaked with dusk. Your peppercorns are safe, your guild token a quiet comfort, but the weight of the Empire's rules lingers like dust in your throat. The air carries a faint chant of monks from a nearby monastery, a reminder that Buddhism isn't just a religion here. It's the pulse of the Mauryan legal system, shaping the bizarre laws that govern this trade route. You're about to see how Ashoka's spiritual zeal weaves through every stall, caravan, and checkpoint, making your journey as much a pilgrimage as a trade mission. A mainstream historical fact grounds this. Ashoka's conversion to Buddhism around 261 BCE, after the bloody Kalinga War, transformed Mauryan governance, embedding nonviolence and moral conduct into laws across the empire, including the Silk Road. His edicts, etched on those stone pillars you've been passing, urged traders to practice charity, honesty, and respect for all life. You're nearing one such pillar now. Its inscriptions weathered but commanding, like a stern monk lecturing you on how to live. It's not just advice, it's law. And ignoring it could land you in the kind of trouble you saw in that village square. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Buddhist-inspired laws ban trading certain goods, like wine or meat, during holy festivals. But in a few towns, you could be fined for selling overly fragrant spices on those days, too. Apparently, strong smells distracted meditating monks. Imagine the chaos. You're hawking your peppercorns, only for Mom Matra to sniff the air and slap you with a fine for aromatic disturbance. Historians still argue whether this was about spiritual purity or just overzealous local officials, but you're keeping your spices tightly sealed, just in case. Those smell taxes from the bazaar feel like distant cousins now. You pause near the monastery, its orange-robed monks tending a garden. The Buddhist influence means trade slows on certain days, like the full moon, when markets half close to honor nonviolence. You've already dodged a no-meat sale rule, but here's a new one. Traders are expected to offer alms to monks, like a handful of rice or a coin, as a voluntary tax. Refuse, and you're not fined outright, but good luck getting a warm welcome at the next guild meeting. You toss a few grains into a monk's bowl, feeling like you're buying karma points. A modern aside. If this were today, you'd be Venmoing a monk while he posts a gratitude selfie. You grin, but the monk's serene nods keep you grounded. Here's a joke to lighten the mood. Why did the Mauryan trader pray extra hard? His spices were too spicy for the monks. You chuckle, but the spiritual rules are serious business. Another law mandates truthful speech in trade, rooted in Buddhist ethics. Lie about your goods' quality, and you're not just breaking bizarre regulations, you're sinning against Dharma. You remember that merchant shamed for fake weights. His punishment was harsher because he defiled truth. You're triple-checking your peppercorn's origin story, because a white lie can mean sweeping streets and chanting apologies. The Buddhist vibe extends to dispute resolution. You overhear traders settling a deal gone sour, guided by a monk who insists they meditate before negotiating. It's a law in some towns. No shouting matches. Resolve conflicts with calm words, or face a fine for disharmony. You're impressed, but also amused, picturing two red-faced merchants forced to sit cross-legged and breathe deeply while their camels snort nearby. The empire is trying to make you a better person, but it's a lot to juggle when you're just trying to sell spices. Another joke. What's a Mauryan monk's favorite trade tip? Sell with peace or sweep in pieces. You smirk, but the monastery's calm is contagious. You notice fewer animals here. No slaughter, no overworked camels, thanks to those welfare laws you encountered earlier. Buddhism's fingerprints are everywhere, from the no-goat rule to bans on fishing during spawning seasons. It's a gentler Silk Road, but also a stricter one. You're starting to feel like every step is a moral test, and your score is being tallied by invisible scribes. You keep moving, the monastery fading behind you. Some laws get weirdly specific. One edict forbids traders from camping too close to sacred sites, like stupas or groves, to avoid worldly noise. Break it, and you're relocating your tent at midnight, plus paying a fine or planting trees as penance. You're steering clear of anything that looks remotely holy, just to be safe. But there's a flip side. Buddhist festivals bring crowds, boosting trade if you play by the rules. You're eyeing the next holy day, hoping to sell your peppercorns without offending any monk's noses. As the stars emerge, you find a quiet spot to rest, the roads hum softening. The Buddhist laws are a double-edged sword, noble but nagging, like a friend who's always right. You think back to those guild chants and public apologies. They're all tied to the spiritual core, making the Silk Road a path of profit and piety. The next stretch will bring rules for foreign traders, and you're bracing for more quirks. For now, you pull your shawl tight, the night's cool air a bomb, and wonder if your peppercorns pass the Dharma sniff test. You're still hauling your peppercorns along the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, the road now a bustling artery, where traders from distant lands, Persians with curled beards, Greeks in short tunics, mix with local merchants. The air's thick with foreign accents and the clink of unfamiliar coins, but the Mauryan rules don't bend for outsiders. As a trader, you're about to discover the special laws governing non-Mauryan merchants, a tangle of regulations that make your guild token feel like a flimsy shield. These rules are as finicky as a camel in a sandstorm, and you're bracing for the quirks that come with being exotic in Ashoka's empire. A mainstream historical fact sets the stage. The Mauryan Empire, around 300 BCE, welcomed foreign traders to boost Silk Road commerce, but subjected them to stricter oversight to protect local interests and maintain control. You're passing a checkpoint now, where Matra with a clay tablet is grilling a Persian trader about his cargo of lapis lazuli. Foreigners need extra permits, pay higher taxes, and face rules locals dodge, all to ensure they don't disrupt the empire's carefully balanced trade. You're glad you're not the one under scrutiny, but you're keeping your own permit close, just in case. Here's the quirky tidbit. Foreign traders had to wear identity markers, colored sashes or carved wooden tags, declaring their origin, like a name tag at a cosmic trade convention. Picture a Greek merchant, sweating in his blue sash, muttering about how he's not just another Athenian. Lose your marker, and you're fined or detained until you prove your identity. Historians still argue whether this was about security or just Mauryan bureaucrats flexing their love for paperwork, but you're imagining the chaos of a busy market where everyone's checking sashes like it's a fashion police sting. You edge past the checkpoint, overhearing the Persians' woes. Foreigners pay a non-resident tax on top of the shiny goods levy you dodged earlier, a double whammy that makes your peppercorn seem like a bargain. The tax is higher for goods deemed luxurious, like that lapis, and you're starting to see why some foreigners stick to bartering. You spot a Bactrian trader swapping rugs for grain, probably to avoid the coin-based taxes altogether. Smart move, but risky. If he's caught bypassing the system, he'll face the public apology you saw in that village square, sash and all. Here's a joke to ease the tension. Why did the foreign trader wear a bright sash? To shine brighter than his tax bill. You smirk, but the rules are relentless. Another law requires non-Mauryans to register their travel routes with local officials, detailing every stop. It's like filing a flight plan for your camel. Stray from the route, and you're fined or escorted back to your starting point, your cargo impounded. You're glad your guild handled some of this paperwork, but you're still double-checking your own path, because one wrong turn could mean a long detour. The Buddhist influence creeps in as always. Foreign traders are expected to respect Mauryan customs, like avoiding meat sales during holy days or donating to monasteries. You see a Greek trader awkwardly offering rice to a monk, his face screaming, "I just want to sell my olive oil." Refuse, and you're not breaking a law, but you're earning glares like it's sour milk. A modern aside. If this were today, foreigners would be stuck in a cultural sensitivity Zoom seminar before hitting the Silk Road with a quiz on how to not offend a monk. You grin, but the Greeks' fumbling reminds you to keep your own alms ready. Another joke. What's a foreign trader's worst nightmare? A monk, a taxman, and a lost sash. You chuckle, but the checkpoint's behind you, and you're weaving through a market where foreigners stand out like peacocks in a henhouse. Some rules are oddly specific. Non-Mauryans can't trade in certain sacred goods, like sandalwood used for temple rituals, without special permission. Break this, and you're not just fined. You're banned from the market for a season, your goods donated to a shrine. You're steering clear of anything that smells remotely holy, sticking to your peppercorns. You pause at a stall, watching a Sogdian trader argue over a language fee, a small tax for needing an interpreter. The Mauryans love their fees, and foreigners are easy targets. You remember those caste lanes and animal rest days. For non-Mauryans, every rule feels amplified, like the Empire saying, "You're welcome, but stay in line." The Sogdian pays up, muttering in a tongue you don't catch, and you move on, grateful your guild's local status spares you some of this hassle. As the sun sets, the market's colors soften, and you find a quiet corner to rest. The laws for foreign traders are a reminder that the Silk Road's wealth comes with a leash, especially for outsiders. You think back to those smell taxes and public shaming. Foreigners face them all, plus extra scrutiny. The next stretch will bring rules about currency, and you're betting they'll be just as wild. For now, you pull your shawl tight, the evening air cool, and hope your peppercorns don't get slapped with an exotic label tomorrow. You're still trudging along the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road. Your peppercorn's a familiar weight, and your guild token a quiet reassurance. The road's alive with the clatter of carts and the chatter of traders, their coins glinting in the morning sun. But money here isn't just coins. It's a puzzle of rules that could trip you up faster than a pothole. The Mauryan obsession with control extends to currency, and you're about to navigate a web of strange regulations on coins, barter, and even those peacock feathers you heard about way back. One wrong payment, and you're not just broke, you're in trouble. A mainstream historical fact anchors this. By 300 BCE, the Mauryan standardized coinage across their empire, issuing silver and copper panas to streamline trade and taxation on routes like the Silk Road. You're jingling a few panas in your pouch now, their square-shaped stamped with royal symbols, a wheel, a lion, proof they're legit. These coins made commerce smoother, but the Empire's currency laws are anything but simple, with rules governing how, when, and what you can use to pay. You're approaching a market now, where Maamatra's eyeing every transaction like a hawk, and you're hoping your coins pass muster. Here's the quirky tidbit. In some Mauryan markets, you could pay with approved barter goods like rice or cloth, but only if they met bizarre quality standards, like having no stains or odd smells. Imagine bartering your peppercorns, only for an official to sniff them and reject the deal because they're too pungent. You're stifling a laugh, picturing a trader arguing over the aroma profile of his barley. Historians still argue whether these standards were about fairness or just another way to squeeze traders, but you're keeping your peppercorns odor neutral, just in case. That smell tax from the bazaar feels like a grim warning. You step into the market, the air buzzing with haggling. The law demands all coin payments use Mauryan panis. Foreign coins, like Persian derricks, need be exchanged at a royal mint, and the rate's brutal. You spot a Greek trader wincing as he hands over a stack of his own coins for a handful of panis, probably losing half his profit. Bartering's an option, but it's a minefield. One rule bans using substandard goods, and you've heard of traders fined or offering frayed cloth or cracked pots. You're sticking to coins, but you're checking each pana for where counterfeit or damaged coins mean a fine or confiscation. Here's a joke to cut the tension. Why did the Mauryan coin shine so bright? It knew the taxman was watching. You smirk, but the Matra's presence is no joke. Another rule limits how many coins you can carry without declaring them at a checkpoint. Too many, and you're suspected of tax evasion, like that merchant sweeping streets for dodging levies. You're keeping your pouch light, but it's a balancing act. Too few coins, and you can't buy enough goods to turn profit. You're starting to feel like a juggler in a bureaucracy circus. The Buddhist influence weaves through as always. Some markets close coin transactions on holy days, pushing barter to honest simplicity. You see a trader swap lentils for cloth, both parties bowing to a monk who's overseeing the deal for moral fairness. It's a nice touch, but the rules get weird. One edict bans excessive coin hoarding, claiming it fuels greed. Get caught with a stash, and you're donating half to a monastery or performing public labor. A modern aside, if this were today, you'd be flagged by an algorithm for suspicious savings and forced to Venmo a charity. You grin, but you're counting your panis twice before moving on. Another joke. What's a Mauryan trader's favorite coin trick? Making his taxes disappear. Until the Matra shows up. You chuckle, but the market's rules are relentless. You overhear a trader fined for using peacock feathers without a royal stamp. Yes, those quirky tenders from earlier need official approval now. He's grumbling. Feathers confiscated. And you're glad you stuck to panis. The Empire's currency system is a leash, ensuring every transaction feeds the royal coffers while keeping traders on edge. You pause at a stall, buying a clay lamp with a single pana. The vendor checks it under the sun, ensuring it's not clipped or fake. Another law mandates honest exchange. If you pass a bad coin, even by mistake, you're repaying double or cleaning the market for a day. You remember those public apologies and guild chants. Currency violations hit hard, tying you to the Empire's moral and economic web. You're learning to move carefully, like a dancer dodging thorns. As the sun climbs, the market's chaos softens, and you find a shady spot to rest. The currency laws are a reminder that nothing on the Silk Road is free, not even the act of paying. You think back to those foreign trader sashes and animal rest days. They're all part of the same system, controlling every step. The next stretch will bring rules about road maintenance, and you're betting they'll be just as finicky. For now, you sip water from a clay cup, the breeze cool against your skin, and hope your panas hold their shine tomorrow. You're still forging along the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, your peppercorn snug in their sack and your panas jingling lightly. Each coin a small victory against the currency rules you just dodged. The road stretches ahead, its surface surprisingly smooth for 300 BC. But that's no accident. The Mauryans are obsessed with keeping their trade routes pristine, and you're about to stumble into a set of laws mandating road maintenance that are as peculiar as they are strict. One misstep, like ignoring a pothole or shirking your duty, and you're not just a trader, you're a road crew conscript, and it's not as fun as it sounds. A mainstream historical fact grounds this. The Mauryan Empire, under Chandragupta and Ashoka, invested heavily in infrastructure, maintaining roads and rest stops to ensure the Silk Road's efficiency by 300 BCE. These routes were the empire's lifeline, carrying spices, silk, and taxes to capital. You're walking one now. It's packed clay dotted with stone markers, and you notice workers leveling a stretch ahead, supervised by a Mahamatra with a scroll. The law requires traders, villagers, and even passing caravans to pitch in, and you're hoping your guild token gets you a pass, because shoveling dirt isn't on your itinerary. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Mauryan roads had sacred sections near temples or stupas, and maintaining them was a ritual. If you're assigned to fix one, you're not just filling potholes. You're chanting mantras while sprinkling holy water on the gravel. Picture yourself sweaty and sunburned, muttering prayers over a pile of dirt, while monks nod approvingly. Historians still argue whether this was about spiritual purity or just a way to make labor feel noble, but you're praying your road duty stays secular. Because your chanting skills are rusty at best. You pause near the workers, their shovels scraping rhythmically. The law is clear. Every trader using the Silk Road owes road service, unless exempted by a guild or royal decree. For small infractions, like littering or overloading your cart, you might be sentenced to a day of repairs instead of a fine. You remember that merchant sweeping streets for fake weights. Road work's another Mauryan favorite for teaching humility. You're keeping your cart light and your trash in check, because you'd rather haggle than haul stones. Here's a joke to lighten the load. Why did the Mauryan trader fix the road? He wanted a smooth path to dodge taxes. You smirk, but the rules are serious. Another law mandates reporting road damage, like ruts or fallen trees, to the nearest official. Ignore it, and you're fined for neglecting the Empire's arteries. You spot a cracked milestone and consider snitching, but the Mahamatra's busy, and you're not keen on extra paperwork. Besides, your guild might cover this, a perk you're clinging to like a lifeline. The Buddhist influence is woven in as always. Road maintenance is framed as dharma, a service to all beings who travel. You see monks blessing a newly paved stretch, their robes bright against the clay. One edict ties road work to charity. Wealthy traders can pay extra taxes to fund repairs, earning merit instead of sweating themselves. You're tempted, but your panis are too precious after those currency hoops. A modern aside. If this were today, you'd be crowdfunding a highway on GoFundMe, with a perk for eternal road karma. You grin, but the workers' tired faces pull you back to reality. Another joke. What's a Mauryan road's favorite prayer? Keep me smooth or I'll fine you. You chuckle, but the system's relentless. Some rules get oddly specific. If your caravan's animals, say those well-rested camels, damage the road, you're fixing on the spot, plus paying a fee for beastly disruption. You're glad you're on foot, dodging a headache. And remember those sacred cows? If one wanders onto a road and causes a rut, good luck blaming it. You're still liable unless you prove it wasn't your herd. You keep moving, the workers' rhythm fading behind you. The road's laws are a reminder of the Empire's reach. Every step you take is on their terms. You think back to those peacock feather payments and foreign trader sashes. They're all threads in the same tapestry, tying you to the Mauryan machine. The next stretch will bring hospitality mandates, and you're bracing for more quirks. For now, you find a shady tamarind tree to rest under. The roads hum a distant lullaby, and hope your guild token spares you a shovel tomorrow. You're still winding for the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road. Your peppercorn's a trusty companion, and the road beneath your sandals a testament to those maintenance laws you just sidestepped. The evening air carries the scent of jasmine and roasted cumin from a nearby village, where flickering oil lamps beckon weary travelers. But don't expect a free bed. The Mauryans have strict hospitality mandates, laws forcing locals to host traders like you, and they come with rules quirkier than a camel sneeze. You're about to learn what it takes to score a meal in a mat, and why saying thank you might not be enough. A mainstream historical fact sets the stage. By 300 BCE, the Mauryan Empire enforced hospitality laws to support Silk Road commerce, requiring villages to provide food and shelter for traders, often subsidized by royal taxes. It kept the trade routes humming, ensuring merchants didn't starve between markets. You're approaching a village now. Its mud brick homes clustered around a well, where a headman's sizing you up, He's bound by law to host you, but the rules governing this exchange are a maze, and you're hoping your guild token smooths the way. Here's the quirky tidbit. Hosts had to follow a cleanliness code, ensuring their homes were spotless for guests, or face fines for dishonoring the Empire's hospitality. Picture a villager scrubbing their floor at midnight, because your dusty sandals are due tomorrow. In some places, hosts sprinkle holy water on your sleeping mat to purify it. Less for hygiene, more for dharma points. Historians still argue whether this was about guest comfort or spiritual flexing, but you're just hoping for a bed without a side of chanting. You step into the village, presenting your permit to the headman. The law's clear. Traders get one night's lodging and a meal, think lentils and flatbread, unless they overstay, which triggers a fee or labor penalty. You're planning a quick exit, because overstaying means cleaning the host stables or hauling water, a fate you saw in those punishment squares. The headman assigns you to a home, but there's a catch. You're expected to offer a hospitality gift, a coin, some rice, or, yes, those peacock feathers from way back. Skip it, and you're not breaking a law, but you're earning a cold stare that'll haunt your dreams. Here's a joke to ease the vibe. Why did the Mauryan hosts polish their pots? To shine brighter than a trader's guilt. You smirk, but the rules are intense. Another mandate requires you to respect the host customs, like no meat in a Buddhist household or no loud talk after sunset, echoing that old noise ban. Break this, and you're fined or tasked with village chores, like repairing a fence. You're keeping your voice low and your lentils vegetarian, because you're not here to sweep anyone's yard. The Buddhist influence runs deep. Hospitality is framed as dharma, a sacred duty to aid travelers. Your host, a wiry woman with a kind smile, serves you rice blessed by a monk, a nod to Ashoka's charity edicts. But there's a flip side. You're expected to leave a small offering at the village shrine before departing, like a tip for the gods. Refuse and you're not fined, but the headman's frown says you're on thin ice. A modern aside. If this were today, you'd be leaving a 5-star Airbnb review while Venmo a shrine donation. You grin, but the woman's quiet pride keeps you humble. Another joke. What's a Mauryan host's worst guest? A trader who snores louder than their camel. You chuckle, but the hospitality laws are a balancing act. Some rules get specific. If you bring animals, they can't graze on village crops, or you're compensating the farmers, likely with your precious panis. You're glad you're animal-free, dodging that headache. And if you're a foreign trader, those sashes from earlier come into play. Hosts might demand extra gifts from exotics, claiming higher status. You're thankful for your local guild status, but you're still tossing a panna into the shrine bowl just to be safe. You settle onto a woven mat, the meal warming your belly. The hospitality mandates are a lifeline, but they tie you to the Empire's web, much like those road repairs and currency rules. You think back to the guild chants and shiny taxes. Every law is a thread, weaving you into the Mauryan tapestry. The next stretch will bring dispute resolutions, and you're betting they'll be just as quirky. For now, you pull a thin blanket over you, the villagers soften a lullaby, and hope your gift was generous enough to keep the headman smiling. You're still weaving through the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road, your peppercorn safe and your belly full from last night's village hospitality, though you're still wondering if that extra panna for the shrine was overkill. The road's busier now, crowded with caravans and traders haggling over spilled grain or botched deals. Disputes are as common as dust here, and the Mauryans have a knack for settling with laws as odd as a two-headed calf. You're about to dive into the quirky world of conflict resolution, where a bad trade could land you meditating with a monk or worse, publicly airing your grudges. A mainstream historical fact sets the stage. By 300 BCE, the Mauryan Empire had a structured legal system for resolving trade disputes, often involving local officials or guild leaders to keep commerce flowing on the Silk Road. You're nearing a market now, where two traders are shouting over a sack of spoiled indigo, their voices drawing a crowd, and a mom mantra with a clay tablet. The Empire's laws aim to restore harmony, But the process is anything but straightforward, and you're hoping your peppercorns don't spark a similar showdown. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some disputes required a truth oath, where both parties swore their honesty before a Buddhist stupa, holding a sacred leaf or stone. If you're caught lying, it's not just a fine. You're banned from trading for a month and tasked with temple chores, like polishing statues. Picture yourself clutching a leaf, swearing your peppercorns are top grade, while your rival smirks. Historians still argue whether this was about spiritual trust or just theatrics to scare liars, but you're practicing your oath face just in case. That smell tax fiasco taught you to stay sharp. You edge closer to the indigo spat, the Maha mantra calling for calm. The law mandates disputes be settled quickly, often with a guild elder or monk as mediator. Here's the catch. Before talks begin, both sides must sit in silence, sometimes for an hour, to cool their minds. You stifle a laugh, imagining these red-faced traders forced to stare at their sandals while their camels chew nearby. Break the silence, and you're fined for disrupting peace. You're glad your guild handles most conflicts, but you're keeping your temper in check, because meditation's not your strong suit. Here's a joke to lighten the mood. Why did the Mauryan trader stay quiet? Here you want to argue with a monk's glare. You smirk, but the rules are serious. Another law allows fines to be paid in labor, like repairing a market stall, if coins are short. You overhear a trader grumbling about fixing a fence after losing a dispute over short-weighted cloth. It's like those road maintenance duties, tying you to the empire's practical justice. You're double-checking your peppercorn's weight, because a bad scale could mean you're wielding a hammer instead of haggling. The Buddhist influence is strong, as always. Dispute resolutions often start with a monk's blessing, urging truth and compassion. Some towns require a reconciliation offering, a small gift like rice or a panna, to the other party after settling. Refuse and you're not breaking a law, but you're marked as petty, which stings in tight-knit trade circles. A modern aside, if this were today, you'd be signing a peace treaty on a Google Doc and Venmoingia sorry coffee. You grin. But the indigo trader's forced handshake, overseen by a monk, keeps you grounded. Another joke. What a Mauryan dispute's worst outcome? You're both sweeping the market together. You chuckle, but the mediation's wrapping up. The indigo seller's fined for spoilage, and the buyer's warned to inspect goods better. Both leave grumbling, but the market's calm again. Other rules get weirdly specific. If a dispute involves sacred goods like temple-bound sandalwood, it's escalated to a royal court where penalties double. You're steering clear of anything holy, sticking to spices. And remember those foreign trader sashes? Foreigners face stricter scrutiny in disputes, often needing a local sponsor to vouch for them. You move on, the market's buzz fading. The dispute system's a mix of wisdom and whimsy, like the guild chants and hospitality gifts you've navigated. It keeps the Silk Road humming, but also reminds you to watch every step. You think back to those peacock feather payments and public apologies. Every rule's a thread in the Mauryan web, catching you if you slip. The next stretch will reflect on these laws' legacy, and you're curious how they shaped history. For now, you find a shady spot by a stream. The waters gurgle soothing, and hope your next trade goes smoother than that indigo mess. You're nearing the end of your journey along the Mauryan Empire's Silk Road. Your sack of peppercorns lighter now, bartered away in bits and pieces through markets and disputes. The road stretches soft underfoot, its well-kept clay a silent nod to those maintenance laws you dodged. The air carries a faint tang of wood smoke from distant villages, and as the sun dips low, painting the sky in hues of saffron and rose, you're ready to reflect on the legacy of these strange laws. They've shaped every step, from bizarre scales to sacred cows, and you're about to see how their echoes ripple through the Silk Road's history, binding an empire and its traders in a dance of order and oddity. A mainstream historical fact anchors this. The Mauryan Empire's legal system, refined under Chandragupta and Ashoka by 300 BCE, was a cornerstone of its dominance, standardizing trade and governance across the Silk Road to create one of the ancient world's most prosperous networks. Those stone pillars, etched with edicts, weren't just rules. They were a blueprint for stability, ensuring goods, ideas, and cultures flowed from India to Persia and beyond. You pass one now. Its weathered script a quiet testament to a system that held a sprawling empire together, and you can't help but feel its weight, like a hand guiding your steps. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some Mauryan laws, like those banning noisy night markets or taxing smelly goods, inspired later Silk Road cultures, with Central Asian bazaars adopting similar harmony rules centuries later. Picture a medieval trader in Samarkand, fined for shouting after dusk, unknowingly echoing Ashoka's quirks. Historians still argue whether this was direct influence or just parallel thinking, but you're chuckling at the thought of your old smell tax haunting markets 1,000 years on. It's a reminder that the Mauryans' oddities weren't just fleeting. They planted seeds that grew far beyond their borders. You pause by a caravan, its drivers swapping stories of taxes and permits. The Mauryan laws, from shiny goods levies to guild chants, weren't just about control. They were about connection. By standardizing weights, coins, and even hospitality, the empire turned a chaotic trade route into a lifeline. You think back to those cast lanes and public apologies. They kept order, but also wove a shared identity, where every trader, local or foreign, played by the same bizarre rules. It's like the empire was a stern parent, doling out chores but ensuring everyone ate. You're almost nostalgic for that checkpoint guard's glare. Here's a joke to soften the mood. Why did the Mauryan laws last so long? They were stickier than a camel's spit. You smirk, but the legacy's real. The Buddhist thread, woven through animal welfare and dispute mediations, left a mark, too. Ashoka's push for nonviolence inspired later rulers, with some Indian kingdoms banning meat sales on holy days well into the Gupta era. You remember those monks blessing your rice. Their calm shaped a moral compass that guided trade long after the Mauryans faded. It's humbling, knowing your peppercorn deals were part of something bigger. The law's practicality endured. 2. Those standardized panis and road repairs set a template for later empires, like the Romans, who borrowed ideas for their own trade routes. You jingle your last few coins, feeling a strange pride. But the quirks, peacock feather payments, truth odes, gave the Silk Road its flavor, making it more than a highway. It was a stage where traders like you performed under the empire's watchful eye. A modern aside, if the Mauryans had a Yelp page, it'd be 5 stars for infrastructure, 3 for overzealous taxmen. You grin, but the road's quiet beauty pulls you back. Another joke. What's the Silk Road's lasting lesson? Pay your taxes or sweep forever. You chuckle, but the thought lingers. The Mauryan laws built trust between traders, guilds, even empires, letting ideas like Buddhism spread alongside silk. You pass a stupa, its dome glowing in the twilight, and realize these rules weren't just chains. They were bridges, linking worlds. The next trader on this road, centuries from now, will owe a debt to Ashoka's quirks, even if they curse the fines. You're starting to see the Silk Road as a living thing, shaped by every law you've dodged or obeyed. As you near a village, the stars begin to peek out, their lights soft against the darkening fields. The Mauryan legacy is a tapestry, threads of order, faith, and oddity woven through every bazaar and checkpoint. You think back to those foreign sashes and silent dispute resolutions. They're all part of a system that made the Silk Road a marvel. Your journeys taught you to tread lightly, haggle wisely, and maybe toss an extra panna to a shrine. The road's end feels close, and you're ready to rest, the weight of history settling gently on your shoulders. Wind down. Now let the road fade, its dust settling as the night deepens around you. The Silk Road's clamor, those shouting merchants, clinking panis, and stern Mahamatras, slips away, replaced by the soft rustle leaves and the distant hum of a village lullaby. You're no longer a trader, just a traveler. Your peppercorn's gone, your guild token of memory. The Mauryan laws, with their quirks and demands, were a guide, not a chain, leading you through a world of spice and starlight. Feel your breath slow. Each inhale a release, each exhale a surrender to the quiet. The pillars stand silent now, their edicts carved for eternity. But you're free, drifting on the Empire's ancient rhythm. Let the stars cradle you, their glow a whisper of peace. Sleep calls, gentle and sure, wrapping you in the Silk Road's last gift. Rest. Sweet dreams.